Hi everyone, Jill from the Northwoods. How are ya? Well, we are starting to thaw out here and that feels good. I'm glad that we're finally getting a little bit of a break from the cold weather, but from what I understand, that might not be your case depending on how far east you live. I can feel it. I can feel spring in the air. My friend and I have gone out and gone bird watching and we feel really good. So what has been going on with Monjero is that my weight now is starting to come down again. So nothing really changed. I am still pretty much eating the same things I have been eating since the very beginning. And you just to watch the weight bounce up and down, and this past 3 months, it's just been wild and over. Like up 2 pounds, down 2 pounds, all over the place. And now it seems to be stabilizing out. So that's good news for me. I feel like we're on our way. But I did talk to my regular doctor on Friday, sort of a half. How are you doing on Monjero? How's your blood sugar? And half, how's your eyeball? So we talked a little bit about both, and he's glad to see that my eyeball is getting a little bit better, but I told him I'm ready to go down to Monjero 7.5. So that will be my next dose drop. I feel like I've stabilized. I feel like I'm eating okay. I can eat more things. For whatever reason, as I started getting higher in dose, stuff, it wasn't that I didn't want it. It just didn't even taste good to me. I don't know, like textures of things. Like I lost my urge to eat eggs, and I like eggs. So it felt like it was going the wrong direction. So now I'm able to eat eggs again. We're kind of back on that. So 7.5 with Monjero is the next step down. My generic plan is that in June or July, somewhere in there, I speak at that conference every July. Maybe I'll wait till after that. Then I'll go down to 5. And then I'm going to just sit at 5 all the way until this time next year, and then see if I want to go down to 2.5 and then go off, or maybe I'm just happy right there. But the plan is, to see. But my energy bounced back a month after so let's say in November, I dropped dose to 10. It took a month, just like it takes a month for it to fully go into effect, it took a month for it to drop down in its effect. And I started feeling better, more energetic. I mean, a little bit more like I was, energy wise. And like I said, it's part of you thinks, well, maybe I'm older, it's, who knows, what it is. But I think that in the end, the drug or the effects of the drug, eating less, eating whatever combination you're eating, was sapping my energy. So I'm really hoping that this drop to 7.5 feels good. 7.5 is honestly where I felt like I did the best. The drug, I lost the most weight. The drug had the good impact, and it was before anything like tiredness and other, anything else started happening. So to me, 7.5 was kind of the highlight of my Monjero experience. Hope you are all doing well out there. But he said an interesting thing, my doctor. Like I said, I like my doctor quite a bit. I think he's a hoot. He said, well, he's a clinical trials guy, right? Remember, he's a professor in public health. Professors in public health are going to look at the population of the people who live in my area, and they'll say, this is what you need to do in order to get healthy. Not talking about you, Jill, but talking about the generic population of people. That's kind of, what population of health is. Oh, I forgot to mention, my skin also coming back in again. So I still have some down here, but I'm starting to see the arm muscles. You see, that was really gross, but you kind of see it coming. And so that's also one of the goals I had, was to give a chance for my skin to go back. But anyway, population health doctors are looking at, people in southern Wisconsin. This would be the biggest impact of health that we could do. They're looking at grand health. And so he looked up a study because he knows about my plans. And he said this, and I think I took a double take because he said, that's shocking, huh? He says, I would really like to see you do 300 minutes of cardio exercise a week. And I went, what? I'm already going to the gym trainer and doing 150 of body resistance exercise, weight resistance, functional training. We do a lot of functional training, which means that it is there to prepare me for hiking, for getting out, to make sure I could just get up off the couch, but heavy weights and it's a good workout. And a lot of times we do hit cardio levels because we do, Tabatas and battle ropes and things like that. 300 minutes. Oh my gosh. I am right now trying to talk myself into just doing some cardio every day, like 20 minutes. And that comes out, 140, minutes. Really, so he told me about the study, and I looked up the study. And essentially what the study says is that if you are trying, the normal person should get around 150 minutes of cardio a week. If you are trying to do something, the number goes to 150 to 200 minutes of cardio a week. And if you are trying to regain metabolic health, that number goes to 300. So he's right about that study. Now, my channel is, I'm pointing in the wrong direction every time. Anyway, my channel is start with small steps. The whole idea is we get to places with small steps. And boy, 300 doesn't feel like a very small step. So I started working it out a little bit with ChatGPT. How can I increase the amount of exercise I'm doing? This is what my doctor said. And, I was trying to think, like, what could I do? Trying to think outside the box about some ideas. And the general idea that we came up with was, well, could you do 30 minutes of cardio a day? Well, it's not too far off from where I'm at right now. But the other idea is that on weekends, I go for a hike every weekend usually. If the weather's nice, my friend and I go out for a 2-3 hour hike. And it's not cardio in the purest sense because my heart rate isn't up at that certain level. We're going to talk about that in this episode today, about what exactly is cardio and where do you need to go. But essentially, it is a good long walk. And sometimes it's technical and up hills and down hills and around rocks and things like that. And sometimes it's flat ground. So it's not going to give me the full moment, but it's a good long workout. And then the other part that I used to do is I used to go for big long bike rides. So we have a number of bike trails right around my house. And I enjoyed a good long bike ride on weekends. I have had troubles, honestly, getting myself to get out there on the bike ever since I started working from home. My job being in IT went to working at home during COVID, and I worked my office was right by a very long 30-mile bike trail. And so every day after work, I just, got in the clothes and drove over the trail and biked that whole trail back and forth every day. And that was very easy for me. And now that I work at home, I'm feeling a lot of resistance getting my butt out of the chair and into the bike trail. So could I just, even on Sundays, go for a long bike ride? I used to, on weekends, I worked my way up to it, go for a 2-hour bike ride. Could I just do that on some assorted weekends? And I can do that. So that's the plan, is to figure out exactly what it is. During the pandemic, I bought myself a nice car bike rack. And, okay, let's just get that bike on the rack, figure out how to fit it in my garage, and then, head out after work and try to go, well, I guess it can't be after work because I work until 7 o'clock Central because I work for a California hospital, but before work or Sundays, and see if we can't get myself to go out for a long bike ride. So the idea is not to do anything big on weekends or weekdays, keep weekdays as they are, and then just go out and try to hit it a little bit more on weekends and try to get some cardio in. I wanted to talk a little bit about my goal because this was not exactly outside of my goal. And so we're going to talk a little bit about cardio and where it fits in. So you probably heard me say this before, but it is the belief of people who talk about metabolism that the things that you need to do is, one, get your fork under control. Weight loss is about controlling your fork. You cannot out-exercise what you eat. But it is very important for you to get strength training because you think about your body is burning a bunch of calories. Let's say that your body is a production company, right? It's a factory company. And each muscle in your body is a little factory. Fat burns calories, but it burns half the amount of calories as muscle does. So if you can build your muscles up and have more muscles, that will give you a metabolism. When we lose muscle mass, either through aging or because maybe we've lost a drastic amount of weight, we lose our factories. And then that puts us in a metabolic hurt because now we have dropped, let's say, so right now I'm back to my 77 pounds. I'm going to get to that 80 pounds someday. But so it's, down that weight. And what if that was all muscle? Now I have less factories and now I'm metabolically more hurt. So the question is when I go hiking, do I carry a backpack? Think about more weight that I could have in my back. Yeah, that is right. It's rucking, right? The concept is rucking, and people will put weighted backpacks on. And I did buy myself a weighted backpack that you can adjust the amount of weight. And I'm going to try that out because that is another great way of making maybe a very mundane hike better for you. So yes, I am going to try rucking this summer and trying that out. So I'm also trying to wear it around the house a little bit more too. We'll figure that out. The one big thing about rucking is you have to find the right amount of weight, and they sort of suggest, I forgot there's a formula out there. You have to look it up. But essentially, I bought a backpack that goes up to 10 pounds. This is not something most people, when they go rucking, they make the mistake of too much weight. And they start either losing the urge to hike because it's just too heavy, or they hurt themselves in that. So it's really important in that to start small and then build yourself up as you go up and up in weight, so then eventually sit at a weight for a while. But rucking is a great idea. I used to want to go backpacking. I don't know, maybe now that I lost all the weight, maybe I'll start exploring that again. So great question. Thank you about that. And so the idea is, like I said, strength training, really super important. We have to maintain our muscles. That's why people are so freaked out about GLP-1s, among the many reasons they're all freaked out about GLP-1s, is they're worried that there is going to, and you hear podcasts say this, there's going to be a national crisis of a bunch of skinny, they call it skinny fat, when you're really skinny, but the only thing on you is fat because your muscles are gone. People that will have lost their bone mass, will have lost their muscle mass, and now they're in GLP disaster area because of the GLP-1s. And that's why we say strength training, eating protein, those are the things, eating protein won't build your muscle, but it'll give you the building blocks to build muscle when you do the right types of behavior. So, okay, don't out-eat the fork. And then the second part is get that strength training in, build muscle. And this is important, particularly as we age, because I'm at this point where parents in my friends group are now struggling, because of age-related muscle issues. And, we'll need those muscles when we get older, because that's what's going to get us out of the chair. And as soon as you can't get out of the chair, you're kind of, at that point where you may not be able to take care of yourself. So that's really important for longevity to do that. But, so what about cardio? That's the third tier of this is the cardio. The cardio is the third part of it. And it's not that cardio is unimportant. It is just not as important as body weight and strength training is. So just keep that in mind, that is the thing. Strength training will keep you metabolically active. It will build those little factories to help you burn calories every moment of your day. When you're sleeping, when you're sitting on a chair, when you're muscly, I don't want to say muscly like, but you got muscle on you, you are going to burn calories all day long, every day, every moment, more so than if you were just skinny but had no muscles in that. So any diet, any long period of dieting can affect our muscles and is something that we can take care of. You can check out the DEXA scan issues in all of this. So the other good news is ever since I started dropping down in dose, I started putting on muscle again, which is pretty good. I lost in the last year 1 pound of muscle. So I put on 12 pounds of muscle the previous year, my first year on Mounjaro. And last year I lost 0.8 pound of muscle because I just think I was not eating enough or, moving enough or something. And now that 0.8 came back. So I'm back to where I was again. So keeping that in place. But the other question then comes in, what kind of exercise or cardio should we do? And this sounds like a lot. I know the cardio is probably my least favorite part. I like the strength training, and I like feeling strong, and I like being able to pick up a 40-pound bag of salt and lifting it up into my car without problem. That's kind of fun. But cardio is just not my favorite thing. And when we talk about why cardio is important, I don't want to get into this because I am not a doctor and I'm not a biologist, but there is something called mitochondrial density. And the mitochondria is the parts of our cells that build energy to basically inside of our muscles that allow us to go hiking without feeling wiped out. And it raises our what's called a VO2 max, which you can get tested at one of these DEXA places too if you want. It lets us move without fatigue, and that's going to help us train our hearts and lungs to do it, and cardio is going to help us get there. A lot of people, if you listen to the real nerd medicine stuff, say that GLP-1 is causing mitochondrial disruption because of maybe just sucking the sugar right out of us, the glycogen out of our livers and all these fat cells, and until our body readjusts itself. And maybe that too is why you start feeling tired and a little bit exhausted, is this mitochondrial issue too. So you want to do things that support your mitochondria. Supposedly this CoQ10 helps with mitochondria stuff, and I did start taking that, but I don't know. I'm not a doctor and I'm not a vitamin expert, but I'm just doing what I can to try to get myself built back up. Because you know what? Spring is out there, and I'm going to go bird watching and hiking, and I'm going to do all those things, and I want to feel awesome. So that's the idea. So what is it we need to do, really? People in the cardio world, you see them at the gym, and people get very extreme about it. And for the most part, you don't have to do huge extremes in it. If you think about like maybe 2 or 3 strength sessions per week, and that's a half hour, and then a few moderate cardios, maybe going for a walk, springing, get you that mobility in there and, help you do that. That combination will protect the muscles you have, support your heart, improve your insulin sensitivity. That's what we're all looking for, but keep the joints moving. I have a old Honda Element out there, which is the car that I drove for the last 15 years until I bought my Subaru. And I don't drive it enough, and you can hear its joints are all like, because it's not moving enough, right? That's how we get too. So we want to make sure that our joints stay moving and that we can stay mobile more often. I mean, that's the whole idea of all of this, is to gain that kind of health. And then the reason I also am really focusing on cardio too is my endurance is shot. It's kind of funny. I always have been an endurance person where I could go for a 3-hour hike. I accidentally went for 11-mile hike by accident because I got lost in the woods, because I get lost everywhere I go. And I was able to, even overweight, even with that 80 pounds on there, I'm like, all right, whatever. I made it happen, right? I was always an endurance person, and right now I'm just not. And I get pooped easily. So I'm trying to build up my endurance a little bit better. So you walk with a weighted vest 4 times a week. That's fantastic. 60 minutes. That's incredible. And a trail with some nice inclines. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's going to be much harder when it hit. That's amazing. That's a great pattern to go. That's fantastic. So yes, walking with that weight will help you do that. So let's talk a little bit about, kind of some ideas about it. So the first thought, what I have when a cardio, is that I've struggled with cardio throughout this entire phase. The strength training I have done, and I have done religiously, and it's been fine. But the cardio, I've really struggled with it. And I was just reading a fellow yesterday, and he said he finally got over the struggle. And what he said is, I have no 0 days. There is no day where I don't move and I don't do something with a little bit of cardio. Now, you could interpret it the wrong way, which was says, that's high effort. I'm going to pump it all out there, and I'm going to, harder and harder and harder, work that harder. We don't want to do that. The idea is no movement days is really good, but there's kind of like, I'm going to move every day. I'm going to do some form of exercise every day. No excuse. You know what? I haven't done it today. If you saw my rings, I haven't done it today yet, but I'm going to when I'm done recording this. So the idea is that removes what is called decision fatigue. And decision fatigue is where you might wake up in the morning and say, ugh, I got to exercise today. I don't want to. It's hot, or it's cold, or I'm tired. And if you get rid of that decision fatigue, and some movement is going to be a part of your day every day, then you stop fighting yourself. There's no more decision fatigue. That is just a part of you. You don't decide whether or not you're going to brush your teeth in the morning. You don't decide whether or not you're going to eat breakfast or eat lunch or eat anything during the day. Non-negotiables. Mostly most of us decide we're going to go to bed. So there's a lot of things in our lives that are non-negotiable things that we do every day, and this is just one more thing we have to really make a part of it. And that's been my new plan, and it's been working. So I have been doing it every single day. And your body does need recovery. And so muscles do grow when we rest. So that means that we have to do it. But that means that we have to redefine exactly what counts, in those days. So like strength training days, I lift, I do those. Cardio days, I train and I do that. But what about a recovery day? Still doing something. That might mean going for a walk at a gentle pace. That might mean doing stretches, doing mobility exercises. You're still going to do those things. And that way you sort of relieve yourself of this decision. Am I going to exercise today? I don't know why I have such a problem with it. In fact, I said at the end of church today, I was going back with my friend and I said, well, my plan today is I'm going to do my live show. I got to record some podcasts or videos, and I got to exercise. My friend says, that's the first time I've heard you mention that in a while, because she goes to the gym with me. So she knows that we both have the same appointment, but me doing it voluntarily has been a struggle to me. So anyway, so the idea is that you're just removing the possibility of nothing. And I had promised myself that if I do my exercises throughout the week, then the Sunday exercise can be something more like stretching and yoga as compared to my HIIT machine. I'm doing Tabatas, but we'll talk about Tabatas here in just a second. So I think that by having no zero movement days, that will help break through that brain barrier maybe you have. But again, small steps, you build your capacity over time, which means what you're doing for exercise today. Now, I imagine when you started with the weighted vest, you had to probably train yourself to do that. That's a good size weighted vest, and doing it a number of times, and you probably started small. So don't hurt yourself, because I'm the person who hurt both my ankles on my legs, and I was laid up for 2 years, right? So it's really important that we build ourselves up slowly whenever we're doing exercise. And if you have questions about it, definitely, see a personal trainer if you belong to a gym. Many gyms have personal trainers and even give you free sessions per year. That's how I met my trainer. But anyway, this will prevent you from having some sort of a rebellion in you. Or, every day I'd wake up and I'd say, okay, well, I get a rest day. Maybe today's the rest day. Maybe today's the day I don't exercise. And then I fight myself. And then all of a sudden I wake up and it's 9:30 and I'm like, oh, too late. So anyway, let's talk a little bit more now about cardio, and when cardio gets to be a big part of this. Is that when we're doing different cardio, there's different kinds of cardio too. And there's a lot of people in the gym. The one thing that you have to see, or like influencers, you have to do what's right for you. You have to figure out what is right for you. It has to do with your age, your current capacity, what you even like to do. When I first met with my trainer, the very first question she asked me is, what do you even like to do? And I told her, well, I like to go hiking, and so let's start there. You found something that you like to do. And then over the course of time, I increased my capacity, and I learned that I really enjoyed biking. And then I learned that I really enjoyed trail running. I am hoping to get back into trail running this year, but I'm also going to be a little cautious because I don't want to wreck up my ankles again. So we'll see if that happens. But let's, like I said, think about cardio in that. So cardio is basically anything that raises your heart rate for a sustained period of time. And the heart rate is based on your age. There's formulas and websites out there to figure out your piece. The biggest suggestion I could give you is that for the most part, good cardio is where you're challenged, your heart is pumping, you're breathing hard, but if your best friend was standing next to you, you could still have a conversation with them. It might be a little bit breathy, but you would still be able to talk. If you lose the ability to talk, that's more the high level of cardio. And there's a place for that. But the bulk of your exercise should be at a level where you could carry on a conversation if you had to. So you like having a rest day. Yeah, no, that's great. So that you started with 4 pounds and after several months worked up to 10% of your body weight. Yep, that's that formula. So that's great. Yeah, and there's a point where you just hurt yourself if you go up higher. So cardio, like I said, at that higher level, you got to find out the formula for me. I think my cardio starts at 115. And then really what they call medium cardio is considered at 125. And that is what builds mitochondrial density. And those are those little energy factories inside that help produce energy to sustain you. And when you are sort of lacking in energy, so people sort of wonder if you're kind of having a power plant problem by your mitochondria not really functioning as well. And so when you have good factories going, you are less fatigued, you burn calories more efficiently, your endurance improves, but also your insulin sensitivity improves too. So we gain insulin sensitivity by weightlifting, strength training, resistance training, but we also get it from cardio. It builds those engines and gets those engines running. So just like weight training builds the factories, cardio makes them run. And when we think about cardio, there's all sorts of different basically areas that we can do cardio. Is that cardio is, I'm just going to go a little forward in my notes because we're talking about stretching here. So if you, like I said, look at light intensity, you could sing to yourself, you could have that's light. If you could still sing a song while you're walking on a treadmill or running on an elliptical or whatever it is, you can sing, that's considered light intensity. If you can talk, then that's but not sing, then that's moderate intensity. And if you can only say things in short phrases, that would be considered high intensity cardio. So without a watch or without any sort of measure, that's kind of the gist of it. But I also do look at my watch, and I keep my watch in cardio zones, because I'm a nerd and I like numbers. So that's just me, but you don't have to do that. But again, if you're going to start a big cardio program, it's worth probably talking to your doctor about, to making sure that you're in shape enough to go start a cardio plan. And so that's the bulk of it. Most of your cardio is going to be in that moderate level where you can talk but not sing, and not in that high level. And you don't want to, you want to challenge yourself. Okay. So now I'm starting to get into Tabatas and what is called Norwegian 4x4s, or, that kind of thing. And let's just kind of talk about that. What is Tabata? Tabata is basically developed by a dude named Tabata. I think it's a dude, I don't know. And it's 20-second all-out effort, right? You could not do any more. 10 seconds of active rest, not standing around, walking around, or standing there just coming off the 20 seconds, but it's a slower pace, So I have one of those, they're called HIIT machines. I never used to be able to do it. I was so out of shape that it used to just kill me, but it was essentially like an elliptical with a stair climber built into it. And they're not as terribly as expensive as, a lot of exercise equipment out there. I think mine was made by Proform as a company. So what I do, 20 seconds all out, and then 10 seconds of actively just going, just keeping the wheel spinning, right? And then 20 seconds out. And I have an app on my phone. You can find them on, like I'm on Apple Store. And we do 8 rounds of that. And so I've been doing that. It's a total of 4 minutes. I do that twice a day. My doctor was like, that's a lot of Tabatas. And I said, well, I break it up, sort of like a morning Tabata and an afternoon Tabata. And that is really good because it's almost like a sprint kind of workout. It's not beginner friendly. So this is something you might want to work yourself into. But my trainer has me doing Tabatas. And I felt that is one of the things that improved my cardio the last time I lost weight quickly. So I started doing them again. The other one is called the Norwegian 4x4, and it was made it's a similar thing, but for cardio improvement. And so again, 4 minutes of hard exercise, 3 minutes of easy exercise, and you repeat that 4 times. I tend to do that more when I am on a bicycle or, outside on a bike. It's really hard to do, I found, on indoor equipment. But the idea is that you just, it's, like I said, hard, not the all out, I could not give 1 ounce more like Tabatas have. It's just that way. And honestly, you go out for a bike ride, you mentioned that you interplace with hills. Hills are somewhat of that interval. It is really good to go on a hilly trail. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're going down, but that is what really improves the VO2 max. Now, I have the Apple Watch. If you have an Apple Watch, will give you an estimate of where your VO2 max is. And mine is terrible, and even terrible for my age. So almost every figure I have in there right now with my health, I am good for my age, except for the VO2 max. And so that's why I'm really working on this Tabata. But I'm trying to improve that because it really is a cardiac measurement of how much effort my heart can put out. And at one point when I lost weight the last time, I was able to, my cardio was great. I was able to out exercise my muscles, meaning I could ride my bike and my heart was fine, my lungs were fine, and my legs were tired. And right now I'm the opposite. So again, I am looking at doing Tabatas on the indoors, and then I'm hoping I'm going to get to do some of the Norwegian 4x4 when I get outdoors. More so, like I said, with trail running and biking. I think more biking than anything else. So that's the idea, is having this kind of cardio, brisk walking, steady cycling. That's where you're going to build your fitness and your capacity, your ability to recover. The important thing is if you're in the midst of your GLP experience, you have to realize your glycogen stores are lower right now. That means the sugar that's sitting there in your liver, it has dropped. And the sugar that's the available muscle you had and all your fat has dropped. And so some of these high intensity workouts will feel harder, and it might be harder to do. Interval walking, yeah, there you go. And the training, it might take you a little bit longer to get up there. So this is the important thing. Work out at your own level. I have problems because most of my friends are much more fit than I am. And so when I go for walks with them, they go really fast. And it's not my space. It's not my pace. And I always feel like I have to catch up to them and catch up to them and catch up to them. And it's not a good workout for me, to be honest. And you have to, when you're working out and you're building yourself up, particularly when you're on these GLP-1s, you might find your tank empties a lot quicker. Particularly if you're going up in dose, you might see that. So do what feels good for you. You want to actually build the habit of cardio. That's the most important thing. And then as you build your habit, improvements will come along. So don't feel like you jump into things too much. So the question is, like I said, how much should you do? The public health, I mentioned it earlier, is 150 minutes a week of moderate cardio. Some people even say 75 minutes of vigorous cardio, but really the fat burning and the metabolic stuff is at that moderate level. And then you add in the strength training per week. And it sounds like a lot when you're starting from zero, and I was there too. But we're going to start with small steps. We're going to start with a 10-minute walk, a day, if you're building up from nothing. Or, you say you're walking and you're walking with a rucksack. You always want to challenge yourself. I think that's the most important thing. My friend, my best friend, she is fit as a fiddle. She is really, really fit. But the problem was, and she exercises and works out every day, and it's just a part of her life, but she was never challenging herself. So when we were when I watched like her little home gym that she has at home, she's looking at like 3 and 5 pound weights. And I'm going to the trainer at this point, and I'm doing, 15 and 20 pound weights. That's just me, because I've been doing this for a really long time on the weight training. And she realized that she had been letting herself off easy, and she wasn't really gaining, she wasn't having big gains in that. So anyway, just like I said, start 10 minutes, it becomes 15 minutes, becomes 20 minutes. You build up in weight too. I really recommend going to a trainer if you have the money to do it. I think it's the best money I've ever spent. And then after you start building yourself up, eventually, now maybe some intervals. You talked about, like you have hills, that's an interval. You go faster at some point. And then you slow down for a little bit. And then when I lost weight the last time, I decided I wanted to start running for no apparent reason. And I realized I lost the ability to run. And so my trainer had me start out where I could run for 3 seconds and then I walked for a minute. 3 seconds. And then I worked my way up to eventually where I could run 5 miles without stopping. But it took a while. And my trainer gave the general rule. You don't want to increase more than 10% every week. So if I could run for 3 seconds, then the next week, I don't know what 10% of 3 seconds is, but anyway, it's, like in 3 weeks, I'd go up another second. So you want to start slowly, but you start building over time. And like I said, you just want to get to this point, but don't feel overwhelmed by this. There's so many people out there on YouTube that are just telling you to knock your socks out and, go at things all out, or do this intensity, or you have to do this and you have to do that. Do what you like. Build on it, gain consistency, make it repeatable, and along the way, you're going to find more things that you like. So that's the idea, is that you want to, get to a place. If walking most days is where you're at, walk most days. Get some strength training or resistance training in there. Right now, like I said, we're on the verge of spring, and I am now doing this Tabatas to get me in shape for when I go out there and either run again, or when I go for the long bikes. My goal is to go bike camping. I bought all the stuff to do it, and then I lost my shape and I couldn't do it. That's where you pack all your stuff on your bike and then you go. And I have the perfect place where there's 3 stops and they're each about 50 miles away, and you set up your tent and you sleep overnight. There's a campground at each spot, and so that's my goal. So yeah, and so you said that you were probably walking 6 to 8 months, and then you started adding the weights on, right? Absolutely. So and then alternate days to wear the vest. So yeah, change it up, and that's the other big thing. And I didn't mention it in the cardio before. Is your body gets used to things. So if you bike every day, bike, your body gets kind of used to it. Or if you go walk every day, change up what you're doing. Like I said, if you walk in a flat place, go over to a place with some hills. If you try a bike out, if there are other things that you could do. I actually bought roller skates. I don't know if I haven't been in roller skates since I was 12 years old, but I used to be an excellent roller skater. Am I going to do that? I don't know. It sounds really scary. So just keep in mind that essentially what you're looking for is something called NEAT, which is called non-exercise activity thermogenesis. There's a term for you, and that means all the movement that's outside of workout. And that might be you going out and gardening, cleaning your house, walking around the house, chasing after pets and kids, taking the stairs, those types of things. So you're also trying to increase a little bit more of that auxiliary exercise in your life. And you want to, again, make sure you're eating your protein, because that's going to give you the building blocks. That'll keep your appetite lower, but it also gives you those building blocks to your factories, your brand new factories. And the important part is this identity shift. My friend and I had this debate this morning while we were at church, is you say, I want to exercise to lose weight. And now I'm in this place where I want to exercise to build capacity. I went on a 102-mile hike in England. It darn near killed me, but I want to do more of those kinds of hikes. And I have to build my capacity. And I don't have it right now, but I'm going to start building it. I'm going to become the person who does that. So like I said, start small. Don't, get injured. The most important thing is that you start small. You don't want to get injured. You don't want to burn out. You don't want to quit. Those are the 3 danger zones. Do what's going to keep you in that seat, and so high intensity is just a little bit of spice you're adding into the foundation of your daily workout. And figure out, essentially, you don't need the maximums. You don't need to go out. You're not going to the Olympics. Oh, the Olympics amazing. You're just going there to get your body to trigger that adaptation, to get stronger. And, that's going to happen through small steps. Not flashy. You're not blowing anyone's doors out. So anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about that in all of this. I can't train like a 25-year-old. I kind of wish I would have done this when I was 25, so I could train like a 25-year-old, but you train where you're at, and that's the idea. Cardio builds the engine, strength builds the factories, and mobility keeps all your hinges moving. So, start small and just keep adding and adding and making sure that you're challenging yourself a little bit all the time. So I just wanted to kind of give you a lowdown on this. I think we get confused about what exactly cardio is and what it's for, and I hope that helps a little bit. I wanted to let you know that I am pondering, and I'm thinking about this, and I wrote myself some words up here, so I was hoping to get to that. Let me get back to my words. But essentially, I this channel, I did this because this is a season in my life of losing weight, and right now I feel like this could get really boring fast, just because every time I'm going to go down and dose. So we're going to go down a dose, and I'm going to go down a dose, and either I regain all my weight back, which I hope is not going to happen, or I keep my weight off. But I also, I'm a small steps gal. The whole channel is about start with small steps, and was a focus of health and weight for me. I'm thinking that my regular editions of this will come to an end next week. I'm not going to end. I'm going to give you updates that will be more like short videos, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not a fitness trainer. I'm not a nutritionist. This has just been a really important chapter in my life. And so, I think, like I said, I will give you updates, but my whole channel is start with small steps, and every single thing I talk about is applicable in many, many different ways. And I do talk about fitness and health and, on occasion, but it's just one of many topics I talk about. But like I said, I noticed that people who are long in the tooth on the Monjero, channel, when they go into maintenance. But I'm always happy, too, that if you contact me, you can contact me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. My email was not working for like the past 3 weeks, and I got that fixed. I moved all my email hosting over to Apple, and now it's working flawlessly. But if there's a topic that you had questions about, but the biggest problem I'm kind of seeing is I eat the same things that I ate when I did my food episode 12 months ago. That's what I still eat. I'm adding foods in very slowly as my capacity changes, but not additional food, just kind of mixing up what I eat. I'm exercising the same way, but I still will give you updates, and I still will talk about things that's going on, maybe do some things outside. But essentially, I hope you check out the rest of my channels. You can go to jillfromthenorthwoods.com, and that will show you all the podcasts that I do. But I don't want to say goodbye. I appreciate you watching, and I know that some of you are just here because of the Monjero stuff. But basically, my whole channel is just trying to make your life better, one small step at a time. So again, next week we will do, I'm going to talk about stress and why we have to combat stress. But I think that the regular podcasts episodes will go by the wayside after that point. And like I said, I will just do shorts and update you on how things are going. And like I said, next week I take the 7.5 dose, and I'm really looking forward to that. But if, as always, you have a question, you wonder how it's going, or you wonder what I did about this or that, I'm happy to do a flash episode and talk about that too. Appreciate you being out there and watching. And this has been such an important chapter in my life. Like I said, this chapter is not over, because now we're fighting the real fight, which is, can you keep it off? So I appreciate you being out there. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, and the advice of the audience, appreciate you being out there. You always comment, I appreciate being there, is don't try to do too much. Your ego will get you in trouble, and your body will keep you out of trouble, right? Listen to your body. That's exactly what happened to me. Is I went, so I started just doing so much. And yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Is that I started, I remember I went running. I was in Louisiana for work, and I ran on the levees in New Orleans. I did 5 miles every day. And then I went and met up with my friend in the Ozarks, and we hiked on mountains that weekend. And that's when I busted my ankles. It was too much. It was too fast. I could feel my ankles hurting, and I didn't listen to my body. Listen to your body. So anyway, appreciate you being out there, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. And again, thank you so much, Cookie, for being out there. I really appreciate it. Have a good one.